What started as a fiery clash between John Fetterman and Donald Trump turned into a moment no one saw coming. The camera pans across a bustling room in Scranton, Pennsylvania. A town hall event is underway, with locals gathered to hear Senator John Fetterman speak. The chatter of the audience quiets as Fetterman takes the stage, his towering frame commanding attention, wearing his trademark casual hoodie. He grips the microphone with a firm, almost defiant stance. There is an unspoken energy in the air, a mix of curiosity and tension. People want answers, but they're not prepared for what's coming. The question that changes everything comes from a woman in the front row. Her voice is clear, almost sharp. "Senator, what's your take on Donald Trump and his ongoing influence in this country?" A murmur ripples through the room as everyone leans in, waiting for his reply. Fetterman pauses, his eyes scanning the crowd as if measuring the weight of his next words. And then, without hesitation, he delivers. Donald Trump isn't just a man, he's a mirror. A mirror reflecting the fears, hopes, and divisions we've allowed to foster in this country. But what happens when the reflection stops looking like us? What happens when that mirror breaks? The audience is stunned. The silence is so thick it feels as if the room itself is holding its breath in one statement. Fetterman has shifted the tone of the event, challenging not just Trump but the deeper issues that he represents. Cameras flash and the moment is captured, destined to spread far beyond this small Pennsylvania town. And this was only the beginning. What came next would ignite a firestorm, unlike anything anyone had seen before. The clip of Fetterman's remarks spread like wildfire. Within hours, it was all over social media, with hashtags trending on both sides of the political aisle. News outlets picked it up, dissecting every word he said. Supporters hailed his boldness, calling him a voice of reason in a divided nation. Critics, however, wasted no time labeling him reckless, even accusing him of trying to stoke more division. But the response that really set the internet ablaze came from none other than Donald Trump himself. Trump's statement landed the next morning during an exclusive interview on a high-profile conservative radio show. His voice carried its signature bravado with just a hint of theatrical outrage. "John Fetterman," he began, "is a joke, a guy who walks around in sweatshirts and pretends to know what the people want. Let me tell you, I've done more for this country in 4 years than he could dream of doing in a lifetime." The host chuckled nervously, but Trump wasn't done. "He wants to talk about mirrors. Let's talk about mirrors. That man is projecting his failures onto me. What's broken is his understanding of what makes this country great. And believe me, the people know it." Trump's words hit like a hammer for his supporters. This was classic Trump, unfiltered, unapologetic, and commanding the narrative. For his detractors, it was more proof of his divisive nature. But there was something different this time. Even his supporters seemed slightly rattled by the venom in his tone. The divide wasn't just widening, it was shifting in unpredictable ways. Meanwhile, Fetterman was unbothered, or at least that's how he appeared. When reporters asked him to respond to Trump's comments, he smirked and said, "If Trump thinks I'm projecting, then maybe he's never looked into a real mirror before." And just like that, the stage was set for an escalation. No one could have predicted the back and forth between Fetterman and Trump had officially become the story of the week. Every major news outlet was running panels dissecting the exchange. Social media was a battlefield with hashtags like #FettermanSpeaks and #TrumpClaps backtrending. Simultaneously, the divide wasn't just ideological, it was deeply personal. For every post praising Fetterman's courage, there was another accusing him of being unfit for leadership. Similarly, Trump's supporters flooded platforms with defenses, while critics called his response unhinged amid the chaos. Fetterman held another town hall, this time in a high school gymnasium in Toledo, Ohio. The turnout was double what the organizers had expected. As he stepped up to the microphone, he addressed the elephant in the room. Without hesitation, "I've heard what Trump said about me." He began, his voice steady but forceful. "And you know what? I'm not here to trade insults. I'm here to ask you, are we going to keep letting people like him distract us from what really matters? Jobs, health care, education. That's what keeps families like yours going. Not this endless circus of who can yell the loudest." The crowd erupted into applause, but Fetterman wasn't finished. Trump can say whatever he wants about me. He can call me a joke, a failure, whatever. But here's the truth. This fight isn't about me or him. It's about us, all of us. And we're better than this. Meanwhile, Trump was preparing for a rally of his own in Phoenix, Arizona. His team had already teased that he'd be addressing Fetterman's comments head-on. The atmosphere in the packed stadium was electric, with chants of USA, USA echoing. As Trump took the stage, he wasted no time. Ladies and gentlemen, John Fetterman says he doesn't want to trade insults, but what do you call someone who talks about mirrors and broken reflections? It's gibberish. It's nonsense. And it's exactly what the radical left wants you to focus on while they destroy this country. The crowd roared its approval, but Trump shifted his tone, leaning into the microphone. Fetterman thinks he's speaking for the people. But let me tell you something. He doesn't know you. I know you. I fight for you, and I'm not going to let some hoodie-wearing hypocrite tell us what America should be. It was a master class in political theater. Trump knew how to rile up his base, and he delivered. But outside the stadium, protesters gathered holding signs that read, "Fight for unity and enough division." The tension was palpable, as if the country itself were holding its breath. And yet amidst the noise, something unexpected began to emerge, a deeper conversation that no one saw coming. The fallout from the escalating feud between Fetterman and Trump rippled across the nation, touching every corner of public discourse. Morning talk shows debated the rhetoric. College campuses buzzed with heated discussions, and families found themselves arguing over dinner tables. It was as if the nation itself had been drawn into the conflict, with each person feeling the need to pick a side, but something different was happening beneath the surface. Amid the usual noise of partisan bickering, a new dialogue began to take shape. People were no longer just debating who won the exchange. They were asking deeper questions. What had politics become? How had public servants turned into performers? And more importantly, what did this say about the country as a whole? In a small cafe in Des Moines, Iowa, a group of retired teachers discussed the spectacle over coffee. One woman, her voice tinged with frustration, said, "I voted Republican my whole life, but even I'm tired of this. It's like they've forgotten who they're supposed to be working for." At a high school debate club in Portland, Oregon, students analyzed Fetterman's and Trump's rhetoric. One young man stood up and said, "It's not about whether you agree with them. It's about whether we're holding them accountable to be better than this." On social media, influencers from across the political spectrum called for a moment of self-reflection. A viral video showed a young mother in Detroit tearfully addressing her followers. "I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I care about my kids growing up in a country where leaders talk about solutions, not insults." The reactions weren't just limited to ordinary citizens. Other politicians weighed in, some seizing the opportunity to align themselves with the chaos, while others tried to steer the conversation toward unity. Senator Lisa Turner, an independent from Nevada, made headlines with a fiery speech on the Senate floor. "If we've learned anything from this week, it's that Americans are hungry for leadership, not showmanship. We need to stop being mirrors for each other's anger and start being windows." To understanding, the phrase caught on, with #mirrors and windows trending on Twitter. It seemed that amidst the polarization, a yearning for something better was beginning to take hold. But just as hope began to flicker, the next chapter of this saga threatened to extinguish it, as the nation's attention remained fixed on the feud. The story took an unexpected turn. A leaked email from a former campaign advisor of Trump surfaced online. The email, dated years prior, detailed strategies for exploiting divisions in key swing states. Phrases like "stoke cultural tensions" and "lean into the outrage cycle" were highlighted in bold, and they spread like wildfire across every news outlet. The revelation was a bombshell. Trump's critics pointed to the email as proof that his rhetoric was never about policy or patriotism, but rather about amplifying discord for political gain. His supporters, however, dismissed it as a desperate attempt to smear him, insisting the email was out of context or even fabricated. In the meantime, Fetterman faced scrutiny of his own, digging through his past statements. Opponents unearthed remarks he'd made during a private fundraiser years ago. In those remarks, he had criticized certain rural voters, calling them stuck in the past. Though Fetterman clarified that his words were taken out of context, the damage was done. Headlines read, "Is Fetterman any different?" And two sides of the same coin, the nation's mood soured what had begun as a fiery exchange between two public figures. Now felt like a reflection of everything that was broken. Cable news programs ran constant updates, and late-night hosts turned the saga into their nightly punchlines. But outside the media circus, ordinary people were starting to feel the weight of it all. In a union hall in Milwaukee, a steel worker named Danny voiced what many were thinking. "I'm so tired, every election it's the same. They stir us up and we fight each other while they sit up there and laugh. When's the last time any of them actually did something for us?" His words struck a chord across social media. Similar sentiments began to surface. People were exhausted, not just by the endless conflict, but by the realization that they had been played into it for the first time. The question wasn't who was right or wrong, but why the system kept allowing this cycle to repeat. And just when it seemed the story couldn't take another turn, Fetterman made a move that no one saw coming, with tensions at a boiling point. John Fetterman announced an unexpected press conference to address the controversy. The venue was simple: a community center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The media descended en masse, speculating whether this would be a counterattack or an attempt at damage control. The room was packed with journalists, cameras, and curious onlookers when Fetterman stepped up to the podium. He didn't bring prepared notes or the firebrand energy people had come to expect. Instead, he spoke with a calm, almost vulnerable tone. "I've spent the last few days thinking about everything that's been said, not just by me or by Trump, but by everyone watching this unfold. And here's what I keep coming back to. We're all tired of the anger, the insults, and the endless cycle of pointing fingers, and, you know, what I'm part of, that I've played into it, and for that, I'm sorry." The room was silent. Apologies in politics were rare, and sincerity was rarer. Still, Fetterman continued, "I don't agree with Trump, and I probably never will, but he's not the enemy. Neither are the people who support him. Our enemy is the division we keep feeding, and if we don't stop, we'll lose more than elections, we'll lose each other." The clip of his speech went viral almost instantly. Some called it a masterstroke of humility, others accused him of pandering. But one thing was undeniable. It resonated across the country. People who had tuned out of the political theater started tuning back in, not to argue, but to listen a week later during a rally in Ohio. Trump addressed Fetterman's speech. "You know, folks, he said some interesting things the other day, and while I think he's wrong about a lot, I agree with this. Americans are tired. They're tired of the mess in Washington, and they deserve better for Trump." It was an uncharacteristically measured response, but it was enough to spark even more dialogue. Pundits speculated whether the two men had struck an unspoken truce or if they were simply reading the room. Either way, the narrative began to shift in neighborhoods across America. People started organizing community forums to talk about local issues without the interference of political labels. Social media influencers urged their followers to focus on common ground. The term partisan began trending, as more and more citizens expressed a desire to move beyond the divisive rhetoric, and in the middle of it all, one phrase from Fetterman's speech became a rallying cry. "We don't have to agree to care about each other in the end." It wasn't about who won the argument. It was about who inspired the conversation, and maybe that was the win. America needed most if this story moved you. Let's keep the conversation going. Subscribe for more thought-provoking stories and share this video with someone who cares about the future of our country. Together, we can build something better.